Hello and welcome to HighCast. HighCast is recorded in the studios of Highland FM. Go to highlandfm.org.au to find out about volunteering and more. This podcast is brought to you by Rad Solutions. Rad Solutions offers innovative solutions that bring youth and business together. Go to radsolutions.com.au to find out more. Our guest today is Carisa Wells. Carisa is General Manager of Southern Highlands Community Hospice and a Bowral local. Welcome, Carisa.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
That's okay. I met you in Mossvale.
In the Mossvale show.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the Mossvale show?
To be honest with you, I found it incredibly expensive.
Okay. See, I was saying to Carisa off air that we just see how the conversation, how it goes. So in what way? Because you've got children, is that right?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a daughter, and I had my daughter and her one of her best friends with us that day. And the girls brought their own money to spend, but I was obviously supplementing them. And I found the entire day just incredibly over the top expensive.
Wow. Okay. Because I'm not from the Highlands. I've been here for what, 2 and a bit years now, and I kind of thought we would rock up to a show when we just walk in, but then they charge you to get in, and then you've got to pay for food and drinks, and the kids always want to go on a ride. Like, you cannot walk past. I've got 2 little boys.
Yes.
And the chances of walking past the aisle with the rides and the show bags, no chance.
No chance. No chance at all, especially when it's walking in and walking out.
Yeah. Well, it's strategically placed.
Of course.
Look, you are general manager of the hospice. I'm sure you're aware of the marketing techniques that are required. But yeah, it's almost like I remember my parents complaining about going to Australia's Wonderland or to the Easter show, and how expensive that was. It's the same, maybe not the same extent, but
when I'm going to the Royal Easter Show, I know I'm going to the Royal Easter Show, and I'm very prepared for what that day is going to cost me. But going to the local Mossvale show, where I thought I would enjoy animal exhibitions and perhaps some craft exhibitions by the Country Women's Association or something, unique to the Mossvale area.
Yeah.
And there was none of that. It was really very, very underwhelming and overpriced.
If you are on the board of the Mossvale show, we have a new volunteer for you. Carisa has just volunteered her time and expertise to be part of the organising committee.
Yes, I'm not sure about that, David. I don't think I'd be able to fit it in.
Okay, so you make a good point. You are the General Manager of Southern Highlands Community Hospice. Tell me about the hospice.
Sure. The hospice is currently running 5 retail outlets that sells donated goods, so donated furniture, clothing, accessories, bric-a-brac, homewares. Look, we don't we take a lot of variety of items, and those shops are all run by volunteers. So I have almost 300 volunteers that work with the organisation, and we are raising money to build a purpose-built community hospice in the Southern Highlands.
Okay, let's go back a step. What is hospice?
Do you know what palliative care is, David?
You explain it to me. Assume I know zero.
Okay, so palliative care is the end of life or respite care of a person who is either terminally ill or ill to the point where they need care 24/7. I guess the reason that this organisation is so close to my heart is that 11 years ago my mother passed away with a brain tumour, and towards the end of her care or her life, we couldn't care for her at home because she was too unwell. And she went into palliative care. She went into a hospice in Sydney. And the difference between the care that she received there in that hospice by the nurses specifically trained in palliative care and the volunteers there was so different to the care that she was getting in the acute care hospitals. So when she would go into emergency, for example, it was like she was just a number, and they really didn't have enough time to manage her properly. At one stage when she was in emergency, she got to the stage where she was unable to walk, but her brain tumour didn't allow her to recognise that she wasn't able to walk. So she would try to get out of bed and go to the toilet on her own, and obviously would end up on the floor. So in palliative care, it was just a completely different situation. The nurses, there were first of all seemed to be more nurses available, and they were just so much kinder. And as a family, we have a large family. We were able to be with Mum 24/7. There was no issues of people sleeping in the room with her, staying over, and it, we were. I think there was 10 of us in the room when Mum finally did pass away. So when I saw that the Southern Highlands Community Hospice were looking for a new general manager, I actually really chased the position, because I knew that reading the job description, I could do all of that, but it was the heart connection that was really important to me.
Wow, that's significant.
It is.
And how long have you been in the role?
I'm only up to my 5th month. I started in October 2017. I am also a new Southern Highlands local.
Oh, okay. Look, I'm making a bit of a habit of this.
You are. So I moved from Sydney in July of 2017.
Okay.
So I haven't even been here a year yet. I have been trying to move to the Highlands for years, though.
Okay. Why is that?
The green, the open space, the fresh air, and the weather.
The weather.
I know.
Okay, go on.
I like the cold.
Sure. and so did your move coincide with the role?
No.
The reason, no?
No. I was moving down here regardless.
Okay.
And some personal circumstances changed. And instead of moving down with my soon-to-be ex-husband, we separated before I moved.
Carisa was like, "Have you got any curly questions for me?" And I said, "I don't need to ask the questions. She's gonna tell me everything that I need to know, regardless."
It's true.
So, and I find it interesting that, I moved here because I was looking for something more. And I was saying off air that Greg Pointing, the man that was on the show last, he moved here because he was seeking something more. Yeah. Does that apply to you?
100%. 100%. Look, my daughter is 10, and we were living in a very small apartment in the middle of the eastern suburbs. Sure, so great location, but I'm a farm girl.
Go, hang on. Okay, I'll let you explain it.
I lived much of my high school in Goulburn. I went to school at what is now Trinity College, but it was at the time Marion College. And I lived on about 700 acres. I had my pony in my bedroom half the time, but all right, I actually stayed in her stable a lot. But in the afternoons, I could, run around outside and jump on my horse and breathe the fresh air and get outside. And I was looking and seeing my daughter, and her immediate relaxation was her iPad.
Yep. I can relate to that. I'm sure lots of other parents can too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kept looking at her and thinking, it's just wrong. It's not what I want for her. It's not how I experienced my childhood. I don't actually want her to, have to inoculate and drench sheep every weekend like I used to.
Come on. That sounds like a lot of fun.
But, to be able to get outside and to ride our bikes or go for a horse ride or go for a walk or a run or a jog. And, sure, you can do those things in Sydney, but they all cost a lot of money.
And it's not the same. So there's a really good run that happens every Saturday called Park Run. It starts at the Briars and then you run down the back of Bowral. And you run past cows and alpacas and horses. In Sydney, sure, right? You're going for a run that might be along a tree-lined path and it might be nice.
Yeah.
But you're not running past alpacas.
No, absolutely not.
So the comparisons are there, but it's completely different.
It is completely different. And I live just near that beautiful walkway, and I love to get out early in the morning and just breathe the air and touch the plants and stop and smell the flowers.
Yeah, it is pretty cool, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I smile from the time I leave my house until the time I return, because I'm so incredibly blessed to be in this beautiful part of the world.
So how do you... So I understand that the community hospice is about bringing the hospice to the Southern Highlands so that when people are in those final stages of life, they don't have to travel very far. It's about bringing it as close as you can. How do you maintain that connection? So you've said, I go outside and I smile and I feel alive. And I'm not saying that they should feel alive. It's the wrong type of words. But how do you maintain that connection that people who are in their final stages of life maintain a connection to the Highlands?
Well, I think the whole point is that the closest palliative care facilities are more than an hour away.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we have Berry, we have Camden, Canberra and Sydney. So they're our closest hospice or palliative care facilities. There are some palliative care beds in our local hospitals, but it's very limited. This facility is a 10-bed purpose-built facility. So first of all, there's plenty of space. And secondly, the design of the building is so that each room and each bed has the ability to be able to be taken outside.
Wow, okay.
So even when a person is not well enough to sit in a wheelchair, the beds themselves are able to be wheeled into the courtyard, and each individual room has an amazing courtyard with beautiful hedging and gardens. So that connection to the Southern Highlands, being that it is about green and garden and that beautiful outdoor sky that we have, is going to be able to, they're going to have that connection.
Yeah, that's really cool. And am I right? It's going in near the hospital. Is that right?
So it's currently, the DA is in at council. We're dealing with a couple of issues that they have with our design, and it is literally across the road from the Bowral Private Hospital. Okay.
And if I'm one of the things that I think is not missing from the Highlands but could be improved upon is that connection between young and old. Is the hospice doing anything to engage young people to bring them on the journey and help them understand what palliative care is? And
and I think, David, that's a really, really good point. And I guess my age and bringing me into the Southern Highlands Community Hospice as the general manager has actually started to bridge that gap. So I'm going and talking to our local public schools to bring them up to speed with what palliative care means, and bringing them into and offering them the ability to be able to volunteer with us as an association as well.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily need to have an older demographic as our volunteers.
Sure.
We're very willing to have anyone and everyone who would like to work with us. So, I'm definitely, I would love to get some, year 11, year 12 students in to volunteer with us. That would be amazing. And for them to be able to learn about death, and it's such a taboo subject. And I think culturally we have quite a difficulty in talking about it.
Why do you think that that's so?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I can only talk from my own personal opinion, and I guess it's incredibly sad. I've lost my mum at, quite a young age. My daughter never met her. And so dealing with death is very forever. For me, it's the only thing that actually is really finite. And that's sad. And I think that's why we find it really difficult to talk about.
Yeah, mortality, it's not something that it comes up in everyday discussion, but I'm the type of person that likes to not talk about death, to talk about meaningful things. And in a way, death is meaningful because it is finite. It is the summary of somebody's life. And what ways could we talk about it more? I don't know if you spend a lot of time thinking about this, but surely you spend a little bit of time thinking about how we can have the discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's part of what we do try to teach and talk about the community with as well. When we have customers come into our stores, we do tell them about what we are trying to raise money for. We talk about death, and we talk about palliative care. And actually, there are a number of customers that, to be honest with you, David, come in just to have those discussions with us.
Really? Okay.
Because
that's not an answer I expected.
No, I know. And I've been working in the shops a lot lately, and what I have found is there is a very large group of widows in the Southern Highlands, and they are lonely, and they would like to talk about their experiences with caring for their loved ones, usually their husbands who've passed, and their experiences with death. And we happen to be an organisation where that is acceptable to talk about.
Yeah, but you're not set up to do that. That's not your primary purpose, right? So it's sort of like a supplementary role that you've taken on.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that comes from potentially the demographic of volunteers that I have working in our organisation. A lot of them have similar stories. And so there's a lot of empathy there.
Okay.
So that's where I think that connection comes from.
It's almost in a way that they're attracted to the role because they get the opportunity to provide that sensitive ear because they understand the situation. And if you are trying to attract younger people to be involved, they kind of need to understand it too, and that's going to be a relatively difficult bridge to cross.
I agree with you, and I think that's where, I think we need to talk more about mortality and what that means. I have discussions with my 10-year-old about what I would like to happen when I pass, and she doesn't like to have those discussions. She gets very upset about them. But that's life. Life comes to an end, and I want her to be prepared for it.
Off air, Carisa was like, what kind of questions are you going to ask? I didn't think that we'd be talking about mortality, but probably naive of me that this is where the conversation might go. I was thinking in preparing for this, talking about celebrations of life, but also talking about companionship. And I see a lot of the work that goes on in aged care as a service. So I just did air quotes for those of you who can't see it here. As a service, and it's not just a service. It's providing that, it's providing companionship in a person's last moments. And I feel like we don't sell it like that. We say you're going to bathe someone, or you're going to clean up after them, but you're not going. You're actually providing them with more than that.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I think what is sad, and I have these people within the Southern Highlands Community Hospice volunteering with us, that they are widows. Their children are all adults. They don't live in the Southern Highlands. They live on their own. They might have a cat or a dog, but the cat or the dog can certainly not care for them in their final stages of life. And that's where the community hospice, we want to provide that ability for people, regardless of their ability to pay for it.
Okay, so there's a financial supplementation as well.
We are a charity.
Okay, but in terms of when a person comes into the hospice, there's no charge.
Unfortunately, not all beds will be in that circumstances, but we're definitely having a minimum of 2 beds that will be subsidised. Correct.
Wow. Okay. So we're providing, well, it's not but you are providing a significant community service. And what was the, you mentioned that the nearest community hospices are an hour away.
Correct.
What was was this driven by community? Is this something that people have been saying for a long time that they've wanted?
Absolutely. The Southern Highlands Community Hospice movement started 8 years ago.
Okay.
I actually met recently Jill Bristow, who was one of the founders of the hospice organisation, and she started off by collecting together a petition. So from back 8 years ago, there has been the need and the knowledge that we need this in this area, because an hour away is just, quite frankly, too far, especially for family to be involved with that end of life celebration, as you said.
And I think there's something special about things that are driven by community, and might be one of those things that attracted you and I here for something bigger than ourselves, because I certainly didn't feel community when I lived in Sydney.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
And so I've come to an area where I've met somebody like yourself who's passionate about delivering a service run by community, for community, and established by community. It's different, isn't it? It's not the same as working for, I don't know, McDonald's or...
Yeah, look, David, I have, over my career, predominantly owned my own businesses. And when it came to me not having that in the Highlands, I really did wonder what I was going to do, because I have a real issue with lining other people's pockets with gold.
There was a little glint in Carisa's eye when she said that.
And so, as I said to you in the beginning, the heart connection that I have with the Southern Highlands Southern Highlands Community Hospice was really obvious, given my mum's passing in palliative care, and the fact that they're a community driven organisation, that it's also a charity. It actually makes me want to get out of bed in the morning and stay up to 1 o'clock in the morning emailing
So what did you do prior? What were some of your businesses?
So I've always been in retail.
Okay.
So it's either been fashion or food. And retail being my specialty meant that running 5 retail outlets, despite the fact that I don't buy the stock, was like, it was a very comfortable position for me.
So what were you selling? You're saying fashion, like hats?
Do you mean in the hospice or
No, in previous
before?
life.
Previous, yeah. Okay. No, fashion. I was assistant state manager for Hound Dog Clothing back many, many, many years ago. I don't know whether everyone.
Why does Hound Dog sound familiar?
Yeah, so it was a surf label.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, many, many moons ago.
Oh gosh, okay.
I also worked with Willis. I worked for General Pants. I then opened a noodle chain of restaurants called Box. There is still in existence in Sydney. Why are you laughing?
No, Box. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
And then my most recent businesses were the Char Rotisserie, which are a couple of gourmet chicken shops in the eastern suburbs.
I said it before last time, but this is my favourite part of the podcast, is finding out the journey and the why. Like why are you here? What brought you to this moment? And it's fascinating. People's stories fascinate me. I think they're pretty cool. So if you could go back and tell yourself 10 years ago that you'd be doing this, actually not 10 years ago, we'll go 15 years ago.
Okay.
Would you have believed it?
I think the not-for-profit sector and the charity sector was always and has always been something that I'm very interested in, and I have volunteered over the years as well. So I've been on the other side, if you like. And that was the only thing in my job description when I was looking at the job that I hadn't done before. I hadn't worked with a volunteer workforce, but I'd been a volunteer. So I'd volunteered for the Starlight Foundation, both here in Australia and in London when I lived there. And for another youth group called Youth in Search here back in Sydney. And I found it very challenging. There was a lot of red tape. And when you just want to give your time and your energy and potentially a bit of expertise, and there you have to jump through hoops, it sometimes you start to wonder why you're doing it.
So am I right, you didn't find your volunteering experience entirely rewarding, or?
I found the actual experience completely rewarding.
Yeah.
I found what I was sometimes forced to do just annoying and very frustrating. Very frustrating. That would be the word, I think.
It's difficult, isn't it? I'm a SES volunteer myself, and some of the requirements that you feel are for OH&S, or some of the boxes that you need to tick because someone doesn't want to be sued.
Absolutely.
Somewhere along the lines can be very frustrating when all you want to do is go and help
and just get on them with the job.
Yeah,
and it is. I have to admit, when I was volunteering in London, I found their system much easier to work with.
Why is that?
I just think there was less paperwork, less red tape, less.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not entirely sure. But it just made it easier and seemed a lot more seamless.
Yeah, okay. I've kind of just accepted it.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be involved, you just got to suck it up. And
that's right.
There's not much you can do about it. And my only issue with it is it puts people off.
Absolutely.
Volunteering. I think we at the SES not lose, but a lot of people are turned off because of their willingness to be involved is outweighed by their outrage at the crap that goes on, and I often wonder how we deal with it, but it's too big.
And look, from my point of view, with our volunteers, I really try to make the experience as positive as possible. And part of my job has been organizational restructuring.
Oh, okay.
And
it's always fun.
So that's always fun. And what I've actually done is removed some of the volunteers' responsibilities and dispersed them amongst other volunteers so that they had less to be concerned about and responsible for, which made their job, well, just quite frankly, a bit easier and a little bit more fun.
How important is fun in volunteering?
I think that's one of the biggest parts, although I can't imagine volunteering with the SES would be particularly fun at times.
I had this conundrum the other day: is how do I make it fun? Well,
yes. So
or is meaning the right way to go down? Because you got to have fun, but it's also got to give you purpose.
100%. And again, I think that's the main reason that volunteers volunteer, because it means something to them.
And how do you reward your volunteers? Oh no,
we have a Christmas party.
Yeah, I know that was a double-edged sword, that one, but it is like how do there is, from a state government perspective, there's very little incentives out there for volunteers. We're sort of doing it off our own back.
I agree.
And sometimes when you're asked to do things, I go, well, what's in it for me?
I agree. For our organisation, I think that the biggest reward comes with knowing that you're working on something that's going to really benefit the community, and also the social aspect of having connection to other like-minded volunteers and also other like-minded customers and donors.
So just spurred something. How do we tell young people that there's something out there bigger than themselves?
I don't think we can tell young people anything. We have to show them and lead by example.
Huh.
So I made the mistake, perhaps, of when my daughter was very young, making sure that instead of me being a dictator, that I gave her the flexibility to be able to negotiate with me. Whether or not that was such a smart idea, I don't know. However, I think that the only way forward is for them to come to those conclusions themselves.
That's a really interesting point. I agree with you 100%, but immediately I'm like, how without giving them the ability to negotiate or a very long leash. How is it just they see you or I volunteering,
absolutely,
or continuously giving?
Well, my daughter now volunteers at the Southern Highlands Community Hospice.
Ah, there you go.
So she's all of 10, and she comes in and she will help me price garments, or dust the store, or fix up a book section, for example. She actually quite likes the customer interaction as well. So my volunteers absolutely adore her. So she has a great time in there. I think it's getting them involved at an early age. I think that's the point.
And is that the responsibility of Wingecarribee Council? Is it the responsibility of local business? How do we maintain what's great about the Highlands is that connection to community.
That's true.
With the next generation.
Well, look, I think we all have a responsibility to our young people. The young people in our society are our future, if we really have to consider very seriously what we want our future to look like. And I don't want to die on my own in a room and be left there for 3 weeks without being found. And that's exactly the point, that we need to teach them about the importance of staying connected and not by Facebook or Instagram. Really connected.
So what does really connected mean?
I think really connected means face-to-face connection.
Yeah, okay.
It means giving them the ability to be able to talk to each other, to be able to socialize, outside of social media, outside of their iPads, outside of their mobile phones. Literally getting out there and being tangible with other people, with people of different ages as well, and with people of different backgrounds, societies, nationalities, however. One of the things that I'm missing of late is that my 95-year-old grandmother passed away in November. And my daughter and I would go to her home, and my daughter would dress up in a fabulous outfit and perform for the residents. And we would take our chihuahua, and they would all pat the chihuahua. And Arabella would sing and dance for, an hour or two for the residents. And it was, you could see their faces lit up every time we walked through the door.
I feel like I kind of put you on the spot with that question, but it was a very thoughtful answer. I didn't actually expect you to go into the depths that you did, but it sounds like you've been thinking about this a great deal.
Strangely enough, I don't necessarily think I think about it.
Yeah.
I just am, and I just do. Yes, I am a very thoughtful, but as in that I think a lot. I'm a deep thinker, I agree. But I just enjoy connecting with people, and that's actually one of the reasons why I moved to the Southern Highlands. I think that I could possibly have ended up in a serious road rage situation if I stayed in Sydney much longer. Because the disconnection there was so rampant. I felt like a stranger in my own town.
Wow.
And I'd lived there for 20 years.
So you mentioned you're a deep thinker. Do you think that that's something that's lost these days, or most people are deep thinkers, but we don't do the communication that gives me the ability to explain my deep thoughts to you and vice versa?
Yeah, I think communication is being lost. Agreed. Yeah. I think now that checking our phones has become our main priority over talking to the person sitting next to you. I think that's a real issue. I lived in London for a couple of years. It would be 17 years ago now. And back then, I did have a mobile phone, but it certainly wasn't a smartphone. And I would sit on the subway and talk to a new stranger every day. The kids that wait for the school bus don't even talk to each other, and they know each other. They're standing there checking their Instagram. They're possibly even messaging each other standing next to each other. It's that bad.
So I keep coming back to this theme, but who's responsible for this? Like, is it you and I as parents? Is it the school? Is it government? Like, how do we? And I know it's a little bit off topic from the hospice, but in a way it's connected because it's about connection.
It is connected. I think it's all of our responsibility, and I think as parents, it's probably more so ours. Without teaching and leading by example, then our children won't know any different. And I am guilty of it. I'm terrible. I work, I don't have an off switch, I have to say. And my job doesn't have an off switch. And so, I am often working on my phone when I'm sitting trying to engage with my daughter. And she will pull me up on it and say, Mum, enough, get off your phone. I want your attention now.
Yeah, that must be hard.
And it is hard. It's time management too.
Come on, don't make this about work.
We're not going to make it about work.
My wife complains that, when we have an argument, I bring in the managerial talk, and it's like, no, you can't bring generalizations in this. It has to be specific.
Yes.
And you need to tell me how you're feeling. I want to know how you feel.
Yes,
until I lose all emotion from it and just go straight into manager mode. I'm hopeless.
Yes. And look, I think feelings, that's something that is not taught at school.
Okay, here we go. How does one teach feelings? Actually, it's not. I don't know. We'll answer the question and then we'll see. Because it's not the right question.
Possibly not the right question, but yes. Look, it is. Teaching feelings is difficult because you have to feel them first, but also communicating them is the sort of next level to, well, how do I deal with these? This is what is going on inside me, and how do I explain them in words?
I was going to ask you before whether in your role you encounter not negativity is not the right word, but if you're surrounded in an environment that is about mortality, like how do you maintain resilience in that environment, and how do you maintain a feeling of positivity and or is it hard? Is it hard at all, or are you just?
I love to listen to people's stories, so I guess I'm a bit like you, David.
That's my job.
I love listening to people's stories, and so I am very happy to take the time to listen to a story of somebody's experiences, whether it be sad or happy. I don't mind, and I'm very comfortable connecting with that person and crying with them or laughing with them. I do it often in my job because part of what we do is hearing people and hearing what they need.
I think that's interesting from a man's perspective, because I am an advanced primate like the rest of human beings, but from a man's perspective, we feel emotions and then just not shut them out, but try and not let them come into decision making and to our normal state of being.
I wouldn't generalize so much and put this segregate it between male.
No. I'm just saying it from my perspective.
I can very easily do that also. If I'm in an environment where I don't need to feel, I'm very easily shut those emotions off.
I think you've articulated that very well.
But when I need to, when I'm communicating with somebody who also needs to feel connection, then as I said, I'm very, very willing to cry, laugh, whatever it takes and it's not a pretend feeling. It's that I just empathize with them. I like that feeling of being compassionate to another human being. And that's what the hospice is about. So that's why I feel very blessed to be able to be working within an organisation that my everyday means that I can be empathetic and compassionate.
Not many people would be able to say that.
No. Not at all.
Do you think that expressing your feelings openly makes you feel vulnerable at all?
100%. Of course it makes you feel vulnerable, but it also builds connection. And I think that's what we're lacking. We hide behind text messages these days instead of actually picking up the phone and calling somebody, hearing their voice. It's become very convenient to just have an entire conversation on a text or an email. And both of those can be misconstrued because you're not hearing the intonation in somebody's voice or seeing their eyes well up with tears or their smile, broad and beaming.
I really didn't think that this is where the conversation would go, but again, that's the beauty of it. So again, go instead of going backwards,
sure,
go forwards. Once the community hospice is built and is up and running, where's this journey taking you?
I would like to continue with the hospice. I'd really, I think in the United Kingdom and in New Zealand, they have really got it right. And the government there in both of those countries really support the hospice movement. And I realise how much our ageing population, both our ageing population and our younger generations, mean to me. And I am very, very passionate about teaching our young kids about the end of life and also providing spaces within the Southern Highlands. But I would hope that if and when our hospice movement becomes a real life building and service, that other communities will be able to take ours as an example.
So you feel like you're really going to be an advocate for the hospice movement?
Absolutely.
Do you feel like you found like your niche, your place?
Yeah, definitely.
When did you feel that? Like a month ago, today, just when I asked the question?
No. I found my place when I was able to wake up and see green out my window every morning.
But it's more than that, right?
That was the first thing that I knew I was in the right place.
Yeah.
I knew I felt at home. Okay, that was the first thing. And then being lucky enough to be given the opportunity to work with the Southern Highlands Community Hospice then took my feeling of being in the right place at the right time for the right reasons to a completely other level.
So we've talked throughout the podcast about communication and trying to engage young people. How do you, I think a lot about career advice. Like if I could go back, I won't say how many years, but give myself some advice. Like what would you tell young people these days, given that there is the confluence of AI and technology and changing work environments?
Yeah.
Like how do we say it? It's going to be okay. You found it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close. So
Yeah.
How do we?
Well, I'll tell you, David, what I tell my daughter.
Tell me.
And that is that I insist on her only doing what she loves.
What about maths homework?
Well, we have made that into games, so she loves that too. So, and I also explained to her that without understanding maths, then there is a possibility that she won't be able to balance her checkbook, and then whatever she loves won't make her any money. So she needs to feed herself.
It's all about money. That's what it all comes back to. From a person who's
for maths, correct.
From a person who says they
reason.
found meaning, and the first thing you talked about was money.
No, not at all. Just for maths.
So is it real to talk to people today and say you can find meaning and purpose in what you do, make a good living, and do the things you want to do. Is that reality, or are we just lucky?
No, I think that has to be the reality of the future, because I think, as you alluded to, AI is going to take over so many of our more automated roles. And I think that the one thing that the human race has for it has going for it is its creativity. And I think if we can encourage our children to think creatively and think outside of the box and think alternatively, then we will have a prosperous human race.
Who have dignity in their final moments.
100%.
Wow, I think that might be a really good way to end it. How do people get in contact with the hospice?
There are several ways. We obviously have the 5 retail stores, 3 in the Bowral High Street and 2 in Mittagong. Just walking in and saying hi is one way. We also have our website at shchospice.org.au, and we have the ability for you to email us at admin@shchospice.org.au as well.
How does one volunteer just get in contact with you?
Absolutely, 100% get in contact with us. We are always looking for willing volunteers to help with not just the running of the retail outlets, but there are fundraising, there is administration, there is IT, for example. There are a whole range of roles that don't necessarily involve working in the shops.
Have you got any upcoming events that you'd like to let people know about?
Actually, we do, yes. We
Plug away.
have a fashion parade.
No.
Yes, coming up on the 23rd of May at the Annesley. It's actually called the Annesley Ballroom. And tickets will be going on sale next week.
So you're looking for models?
We have all our models.
Oh, there you go. I was going to volunteer.
Were you going to volunteer?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll put my hand up as a model.
I'd like to see that.
We're going to arrange something. And can people donate?
Absolutely. And donations of clothing and smaller items like bric-a-brac or books can just be brought into the stores. But larger items like furniture, we do get our furniture coordinator to go out and have a look at it, see whether or not it's something that we would be able to sell. And we have a wonderful gentleman who does our delivery and pickup. So we have our own van that we can deliver and pick up with.
Fantastic. And cash donations at all as well?
100% cash donations are always welcome. And you can just go to our website, shchospice.org.au, to do that.
Fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I didn't expect it to go some of the places it did, but I did warn you that we'd speak about many things other than just the hospice. This has been HighCast. You can subscribe to HighCast on iTunes and SoundCloud and a number of other podcast providers. Next week, we're going to have a Robertson local who's been farming for many, many years, an actual local this time.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.